Warning. This video is not for kids. Do not be like every parent in the 80s and let your kid watch this video. Like our parents let us play Leisure Suit Larry. It was inappropriate. Look at me. I played Leisure Suit Larry when I was young, and I'm a weirdo now. Don't let your kids be like me. Also, a heads up. I'm looking at 80s and 90s comedy and pop culture and video games, so there's going to be homophobic slurs, racism, and some pretty egregious transphobia. Now answer a series of 5 pop culture questions to verify your age, and we'll begin. Leisure Suit Larry is a man known for many things. An icon of 80s pervy gaming. The game that Gen X and millennial youth snuck play sessions in when their parents weren't around. Like 5 very terrible post-Sierra reboot games. But one thing, he's very notably 100% heterosexual. Larry loves ladies. But what if Larry turned gay? It happened. Once. Hello and welcome back to Bears and Games Presents Great Moments of Queer Gaming History. I'm your host, Kubert, and today we're taking a look at one, as the kids call it, Bad End from 1993's Leisure Suit Larry 6, Shape Up or Slip Out by Sierra Online. To be upfront and clear, this is literally a text box and a small picture, but it was enough for me as a closeted queer teen to be blown away by. Look, there wasn't much gay representation in gaming back in the 90s, so we had to take what we could get. So in this little video, I'm going to take a look at the non-standard game over and other queer moments in Sierra's history. But first, who or what is Sierra Online?
My job is to make sure your visit here is everything your heart desires. And less.
Sierra Online was founded by married couple Ken and Roberta Williams back in 1979, making it about as old as I am. Inspired by the seminal text adventure game Colossal Cave and other early text adventure games, Roberta Williams realized that these games would be more accessible if they had a visual component, something that early computers like the Apple II were now able to do. She and Ken went on to create Mystery House and Wizard and the Princess before moving on to what they called their 3D adventure game template with King's Quest, which the New York Times interview with Ken Williams revealed was funded by IBM to help create groundbreaking new games to showcase the power of their upcoming PC Junior. This toolset was called AGI, Adventure Game Interpreter. Now, instead of a picture window, the game could offer a full-screen graphical representation of the area you were in. And this also meant that you appeared on your screen as a character avatar, and the game could be directly controlled with arrow keys on your keyboard. This forced perspective meant you could walk up and down on the screen, or on an imagined Z-axis towards the back and front of the screen, around, behind, and in front of objects, avoid traps, dangers, drops, and pitfalls, and interact with, and most likely get killed by other characters and creatures. The game also had a text parser, meaning that, like with the text-based adventure games before, the game had a long list of commands and objects it understood. You could, say, type, look at bridge, or talk to monster, and hopefully the game would understand what you meant. You also, like in earlier adventure games, had an active inventory you could check out, and you could use or combine objects in your inventory to solve puzzles and complete quests. King's Quest, Space Quest, Police Quest, and of course Leisure Suit Larry were all built on this initial software base. Also, Manhunter New York and Manhunter San Francisco, 2 games by the Murray siblings set in a post-apocalyptic Earth after an alien invasion. These games were really cool and came out late for the AGI games. They ditched the third-person view for a combination of first-person full-screen adventuring with a sort of point-and-click interface. On the PC, the cursor was controlled by the keyboard. But they were crazy ahead of their time, continuing immediately after death, context-sensitive cursor commands, and excellent art design. Sierra's toolset was revamped with King's Quest IV, the SCI system, the Sierra Creation Interface. This allowed for higher resolution AGI graphics and now sound card support. My dad's IBM PS2 didn't have a sound card, but King's Quest IV was still stunning, with a half-hour-long score bleeped and blooped out by the internal PC speaker. It was like an interactive cartoon, but going back now and checking out SCI games while emulating a good sound card is bonkers. It sounds like professional CD quality music with a Roland MT32, very discordant with the chunky 80s graphics on the SCI output. From there, the SCI tools added support for VGA graphics, traded the text input bar for mouse and icon-based controls, and this was huge. The games at this point looked like paintings, and Sierra tried hard to mix it up with more realistic environments and sometimes digitized characters and real people, claymation models, and more cartoony stylized renderings. The SCI games, both in 16-color EGA original flavor, and then the fancy 256-color VGA Baja Blast, were for me the real pinnacle of Sierra adventure gaming. Charming sprite animation, beautiful watercolor backgrounds, but still chunky and nostalgic for me even today. They added some more games to their catalog, like the Quest for Glory series, which combined the adventure game mechanics with a traditional RPG system and combat. And there was also the Laura Bow Mystery series, based on that original Mystery House that was a personal favorite of mine. These VGA games also came with the advent of the talkie CD-ROM versions of these classics, and hoo boy, let me tell you, do not play the talkie versions of the VGA-era Sierra games, specifically the early ones like King's Quest V or The Dagger of Amon-Ra. The voice acting can be so bad to the point where they actively make the game worse.
Why? Why would this wizard, Mordak, want my castle? What could he have against me and my family?
That I don't know. Ooh, I only know that it was Mordak who took your castle and your family. Well, perhaps I can help you. My employer also happens to be a wizard, which is why I recognized Mordak.
Unfortunately, the easiest versions of these games to find, especially on services like Steam and GOG, are the talkie versions. But fortunately, they do offer the option to switch back to their text-only modes. A lot of the time, the wry humor from the text descriptions and the goofy conversations just work better read than spoken. Plus, you'll invariably be able to read much faster than the time it takes to stop and listen. At this point, Sierra games shift away from the SCI point-and-click style interface to FMV and fully animated games, embracing what would be called the Sillywood era of gaming. Lots of money was coming in, and adventure games were at their peak of popularity with stuff like Myst. So the sprite-based antics were traded in for digitized actors and locations. Unfortunately, the massive uptick in production costs involved with live actors and TV quality animation was causing Sierra problems in the mid to late 1990s. Now, I know there's a lot of bad talk about FMV games, but Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle of the Flesh.
Borderline.
What's happening?
What?
And Gabriel Knight, The Beast Within, were genuinely great. As they started moving into 3D, Sierra hit up against some costly misses, like the Tomb Raider-esque King's Quest VIII, or the apparently good but technically tough to run at the time Gabriel Knight 3, The Slutty Vampires of France. They did have a hit on their hands as the publisher of Half-Life 1, from up-and-coming new game studio Valve.
Good to see you.
I think those guys could be good. But the true death of Sierra was at the hands of Cuck. Not a Cuck, but CUC, CompuCard, which according to Wired was a genuine fraud of a company. Going through and reading their business model, something about delivering special deals to consumers and companies, sounds sort of like an MLM Groupon. They bought Sierra for $1 billion, and in the matter of a couple of years had completely dissolved it, caught in a massive accounting fraud scandal. An ignominious end to one of the massive powerhouse developers of the 80s and 90s. It, along with Blizzard, which also had been cucked, was picked up by Vivendi, and then pretty much all its Sierra side assets were promptly thrown in the nearest dumpster. And yes, Microsoft owns them now.
I'm using Windows 386. So all my applications are running at once. My report right now is scattered all over my disk. Whoa, Windows will pull these parts together real quick.
I'd messed around with computer games at my friend's house before, but that IBM PS2 was my family's first PC-compatible computer, and I fell into the world of Sierra games hard with King's Quest IV. I love Sierra games. They were my favorite. Now, if you listen to Retro Games podcasts, they will almost invariably tell you that Sierra games were dumb and bad, and that Lucasfilm/LucasArts games were good and best and the only games to play, and if you liked Sierra games, you were a stupid loser, as Sierra's games were terrible, impossible, and just killed you over and over. Now, I'm not saying LucasArts games aren't great. For the most part, they are. I love Loom, and Monkey Island, and Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, and especially Day of the Tentacle.
Laverne, how'd you get upstairs?
Am I upstairs? I got lost.
Seen any tentacles?
What's a tentacle?
Oh, just something I whipped up in my spare time. Made good pets, actually. Until one of them tried to take over the world.
After the early titles Zack McCracken and Maniac Mansion, LucasArts scrapped death mechanics pretty much altogether, and were carefully designed to avoid unwinnable situations where you could progress beyond access to an item that would be crucial to you later. Sierra games did suffer from being able to miss picking up items that you would absolutely need an hour or two later. And yes, deaths. Lots of deaths. So many deaths. But there's two things to note about this. One is that you can save at any time and have tons of save games, and the games always encourage you to save often and have many save files. The second is that the deaths are, weird and fun, often strange and delightfully gory. Many times exaggerated and funny, with a little quip from the game's narrator or creator. Except for the occasional platforming section where you had to navigate pixel perfectly around chasms, I never felt like the game was punishing me much with these deaths, and usually in subsequent playthroughs I would go out of my way to find the strangest ways to die they program into this game, and they could get gnarly. It wasn't until the advent of YouTube and Let's Players like Her Crabbiness, Rusalka, and Late Blight that I got to know people outside my immediate family and friends who also saw the fun and value in these games. And even my current podcast co-host Vanessa is secretly a fan of Sierra games. I like to think that Sierra games are for gentle nerds, who also for some reason like to see their protagonist's head explode sometimes.
Too gross.
And for the record, both Sierra and LucasArts have pretty equally obtuse puzzles that are hard to navigate without a guide. Source, me being stuck in Day of the Tentacle for a few years until online adventure game guide websites became a thing, and I could look up what the hell I was supposed to do.
Any amendments or anything, so we put a suggestion box over there. I don't suppose you have any brilliant ideas.
What about free sandwiches for all roadies?
No, there's no such thing as...
Don't say it, dude. I've heard it before.
But let's leave the Sierra Defense Force behind and look at the true subject of today's video, Leisure Suit Larry. This wasn't Sierra's first foray into spicy content. Some of you may be aware of the infamous box art for Soft Porn Adventure, a real Penthouse Forum-looking piece of 1981's retro pornography nostalgia. That was created by Chuck Benton, and according to the Atlantic article on its creation by Lane Nooney, originally was self-published by Benton before being picked up by Ken Williams. Its location of a disco, bar, and casino all would be revisited in Leisure Suit Larry, a game this time helmed by former music teacher and self-taught programmer and noted heterosexual bear, Al Lowe.
I think, and of course my psychoanalyst has helped us a lot, that Larry is the outside life that I never had.
So what was the Leisure Suit Larry series? There were globe-trotting adventure games, each with their own location and feel, about Larry Laffer looking for love and/or some sexy fun times. It was about dumb gags, broad humor, silly moments, and giant knockers. Leisure Suit Larry is a product of its time in so many ways, both nostalgic and in the, look, you're gonna have to understand that it was a different time, sweaty explanation kind of way. One thing is key to understanding the tone of the work. Larry sucks. The game goes out of its way to portray him as a desperate loser with no redeeming qualities. Almost all jokes are aimed squarely at him, not the women he pursues or the sleazy people in the seedy world he inhabits. Now, this is something that many pieces of media do. The whole Cartman thing of Cartman being terrible and the things that he says or does inherently stupid and wrong, but plenty of people misunderstand South Park and take the show as celebrating and validating his and their views.
Step out of the car, please, sir.
On the flip side, I think Al Lowe finds this tone perfectly. And absolutely no one is going to mistake Larry for a hero worth emulating. I don't mean in the Scum VM sense. As Leisure Suit Larry was released in 1987, the Leisure Suit was a dressy bit of clubwear from the 1970s that was already a decade out of style, made most famous by John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. As a quick aside, another bit of disco-style clothing-related comedy that doesn't work if you don't understand the fashions of the era was that Mr. Furley, Don Knotts' landlord character in the later seasons of Three's Company, was an older man trying to dress young and hip with his wild, disco-inspired fashions.
Talk and a little more action, okay?
Okay, you do your part, I'll do mine. I don't think it'll reach.
Larry, a few years later, was also an aging hipster, but one clinging to increasingly out-of-date fashion as the series went on. Leisure Suit Larry 1, Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of Lounge Lizards, has a definite sense of place and time. You're out for a night on the town, in Lost Wages, and the town itself is sleazy, dark, and decrepit. It's a world inspired by the kind of horny adult joke books your dad might have kept in a musty bookshelf. It's also inspired by the kind of zany cartoon logic of the Airplane and Naked Gun series, or the broad comedy of Blazing Saddles.
Oh, come on, Mongo. You a free man.
Mongo stayed with Sheriff Bart. Sheriff first man ever whipped Mongo. Mongo impressed. Have deep feelings for Sheriff Bart.
Oh, you better watch out, big fella. I think Mongo has taken a little fancy to you.
Oh, Mongo straight.
The art style is almost Ralph Bashki-esque, with realistic for the time cities and clubs and dark alleyways, emphasizing the pop culture's fixation on the menace and decay of city life at the time. Outside of the casino, nothing is new, or clean, or shiny. Larry hooks up with a sex worker, and possibly my favorite sex scene in any video game, depicting a bouncing censored sign, but decides that those 2 minutes weren't enough for him. He needs more. True love. As this is a Sierra game, Larry's life expectancy during the quest is very, very short. You will get killed trying to cross the street. You'll get killed if you try to flush the toilet in Lefty's bar. You'll die immediately from an STI when your penis falls off if you fuck without a condom. Or maybe your penis is destroyed. I'm not entirely sure how to interpret the sparkles on his crotch. In one of the silliest fourth wall breaking bits, you'll also die if you venture into the dark alleys of the city, only to be resurrected immediately in the adventure game Hero Center after death. This is what I'm talking about when I say that sometimes the death scenes in Sierra games are the best parts. Does the game's body humor age well? Heck no. I don't mean this as a criticism of Al Lowe's writing, but more that the whole adult joke book perspective on humor and life is one that's so ingrained in a specific place and time that it's hard to be anything other than inscrutable or abrasive to anyone who wasn't around in the 1970s and 1980s. It's not difficult to understand a feminist critique of the game, both from a modern perspective or even of the era. Women are objectified, gorgeous, ephemeral perfection things to be won.
All of you, standing around deciding my future? I am not a prize to be won.
Or, like a horny mom in Leisure Suit Larry 2, homely crones not worthy of a full-screen picture. Take my favorite bit from the game. Larry looking to purchase condoms, embarrassed by the sleaziness of the transaction. He looks around, nervous, but sees the convenience store is empty. The cashier, in a thick, very not American accent transliterated through the text, asks an endless series of questions until he finally reads back your list of choices as he rings in the purchase on his till. Suddenly, heads from behind every aisle in the store pop out just to scream, "What a pervert!" A great joke, but the accent stuff makes it thoroughly indigestible to a modern audience. Well, most of you, because making fun of the way non-native English speakers talk kind of sucks. And don't tell me in the comments that you like it. Don't. Just don't. But judging this kind of social satire out of the context of its creation is almost always going to be tough. Just gotta have a clip of Al Lowe pretending to be Leonard Maltin before the game starts, explaining that these games are a product of their time, and erasing them is tantamount to pretending these things didn't exist. Now you may be wondering how easy to access this vaguely pornographic game series was to a tween to teen. The answer? Very. Now, to be fair to Sierra and Al Lowe, this was when piracy was rampant among pretty much everyone with a PC, and sharing and copying floppies and installing on multiple systems was just something that pretty much everyone did.
Jenny, hold up. Look, I brought a disc, and we could copy this, okay? And we can play it on my brother's computer.
Okay, no problem. All we gotta do is... Whoa.
Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Did I hear you right? Did I hear you saying that you're gonna make a copy of a game without paying? Come on, guys. I thought you knew better. Don't copy that floppy.
Wait a minute. Who the heck are you anyway?
Yeah, and what are you doing on our computer?
I'm your MC, double def, DP.
So with games being pretty much free, access was easy. This was the 1980s, when parents, or at least my parents, let us watch movies like Revenge of the Nerds with no issues.
Step aside, Mama. I want to see some of that muff. Oh, hair pie, hair pie.
But the Larry games, at least 1 and 3, did start with an age verification quiz with pop culture and history questions designed to stump the young and horny. But they did not account for my neurodivergent brain and endless need to know as much pop culture history as possible, so even at age 8 or 10, these weren't an issue. Leisure Suit Larry 2, meanwhile, is running on an SCI engine with upgraded sound support and resolution, and my session with recording the game footage was actually my first time with the game. And if I do say so myself, I did pretty well without having to look up any puzzle solutions. Larry decides after hooking up with Eve at the end of Leisure Suit Larry 1 that they are dating, and she comes home to him mowing her lawn and apparently having moved in all his stuff. He manages to con his way into a lottery show and a dating show, replete with the first of several very Queenie lisping men in the Larry sequels as its producer, and somehow becomes a millionaire. The introduction sets up a very Bond villainy Dr. Nonuki on the island of Nantonite, and Larry starts getting involved with some microfilm hidden by the KGB and an instrument he picks up, a fictional device called an onclunk. The KGB following a family that picks up hidden microfilm is one of my favorite plot devices, which always reminds me of the Family Ties adventure movie shot on real film.
Oh, allow me, please. Is this yours?
Yes, the beige one, thank you. I'll just get my stuff here.
It's been a lovely journey. I've enjoyed having you as a seat mate.
The pleasure's been all mine, Mr. Markham. Thank
Goodbye.
you. Goodbye.
Honey, you know, you're that charming Mr. Markham. He's so nice. Why don't we ask him if he wants to join us at our hotel for dinner?
At the end of this, Larry rescues and marries the beautiful island princess Kalalau and foils the plans of Dr. Nonuki. Spoilers, I guess. Oh yeah, and also Patty, or Polyester Patty as she's called in this one, a sort of much hotter female equivalent to Larry, who will return. Because then there was Leisure Suit Larry 3. In Larry 3, passionate Patty in pursuit of the pulsating pectorals, colonization and gentrification, or yuppification in the terms of 1989, turns Nantonite into a tourist destination for swinging singles, in one of the very best moments of Sierra Games storytelling. Larry 3 was, for 30 years, my favorite in the series, though coming back to it now, I have a more nuanced look at it. It's definitely the one where Larry gets the most sex. And it was the first game I'd encountered with several instances of full frontal male nudity, which even in pixelated form I'm not entirely sure I can show on this channel. Please enjoy this dramatic recreation of me discovering the flagrant sexuality of this game back in 1989.
Interesting.
The horniness of scenes were gated behind the pop culture and history quiz at the beginning of this game, with 5 questions that, for each correct answer, would unlock longer and more explicit sex scenes and nudity. But that wasn't the most impactful moment for me. No, it was a relatively innocent little bit of comic body transformation. You see, at the gym, Larry is wearing this overly tight women's workout sweatsuit, and he tries out their weight machines, and after 13 reps on each set, this happens.
This better not awaken anything in me.
The most interesting thing about the game is that after Kalalula divorces you for her lesbian hot tub repairwoman, Larry decides to abstain from relationships forever, pursuing only lust. And it's at this moment that, after a few interesting sexual encounters, including one where he ends up dressed as a cabaret dancer and meets up with a sexy lady lawyer with a cross-dressing kink, Larry meets the woman of his dreams, Passionate Patty. She loves his newly ripped physique and awkwardness, and they meet up for the best sex of their lives. However, Larry's insecurity after hearing her murmur the name of another man in her sleep leads him to running away into the jungle forever, and the game switches to Patty in order to rescue him. You can stop by the male review Chip and Dale's, and surprisingly the dancer, whose body you literally never see except in an overhead shot, and with a tiny pixelated thong, actually is a kinda cute muscle bear. But she can't hook up with him! What the hell, Lo? After some jungle adventures and a surprisingly frustrating Sierra-style minigame, Patty reunites with Larry and uses her magic marker to get out of there, crashing out of the game entirely and into Sierra Studios, where you wander through Police Quest, Space Quest, and King's Quest before Roberta Williams offers Larry a job. The end. I love this as an ending, reminding me very much of the extremely silly finale to Blazing Saddles.
Wrong! Okay, just watch me. It's so simple, you sissy Marys. Give me the playback and watch me fang it.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give 'em a push. You'll be surprised you're doing the French mistake. Voila!
Cut! What in the hell do you think you're doing here? This is a closed set.
Piss on you. I'm working for Mel Brooks.
Not in the face. Thank you.
That's it, buddy! Come on, girl!
Now, Al Lowe said that this was the end of the line for Larry's story. There was going to be a Leisure Suit Larry 4, and he kept his word. But he didn't say anything about a Leisure Suit Larry 5. So this means Leisure Suit Larry 5, Passionate Patty Does a Little Undercover Work, was released 2 years later, in 1991. Larry has amnesia about the events of a hypothetical Larry 4, and can't remember why he and Patty broke up. This game, along with the VGA remake of Leisure Suit Larry 1, shifted the art style with the new wider color palette and heftier game size. Now instead of the much more realistic American comic Sierra House style, like in King's Quest V or Space Quest 4, Larry had a much more exaggerated caricature style with ginormous head that matched the box art of the first 3 games.
Yo! No!
Also, the relatively realistic backgrounds were swapped out with that sort of retro 50s combined with 90s aesthetic art style that was all the rage, especially in kids' commercials.
Orders are pouring in at the Kool-Aid Wacky Warehouse. It's wackier than ever.
The wackiest.
Last week, Harley and I reviewed Ultra Enviroman. Whack to the curb. It has got to go.
This year, we've got all kinds of wild new stuff, and you can taste our pre-hysterical new Kool-Aid flavor, Purple Saurus Rex.
So today, we're going to take a look at Battletoads. Rocket!
Lots of triangle pattern backgrounds and no right angles anywhere. As a tween, I hated it. As an adult, it's definitely nostalgic both for the games and the overall art style of much of pop culture in the early to mid-1990s. Unfortunately, in spite of a great setup and again swapping between Larry, who is working for a porn company run by the mob, and Patty, who has been chosen by the FBI as an unofficial agent, the setup and gameplay of this one is among the worst in the series. The porn company Larry's working for is creating America's sexiest home videos, and needs the sluttiest host possible, so they pick Larry as the loser to judge these women, because if they'll sleep with him, they'll sleep with anyone. Oh yeah, and I guess this is a bit of queer and bear content. In the VGA remake of 1, there's a big guy with his butt hanging out at Lefty's bar, and if you try to talk to him, it says it looks like he already has a date in the skinny guy next to him. Am I reaching? Definitely. Now we get to the real meat of this video. 1993's Leisure Suit Larry 6, Shape Up or Slip Out.
Ah, another busy summer day. You decide to wander down to Muscle Beach to work out. Your eyes oogling babes.
Fortunately, Leisure Suit Larry and Space Quest weathered the shift to talkies much better than other Sierra properties, especially as Sierra began hiring more accomplished voice actors like Neil Ross to narrate and act in their games.
As the limo stops, a beautiful blonde emerges from the sunroof to announce,
"My name is Shallow, and I'm looking for one very good man."
Out of the way, Bob. Let me at her. Move it.
To appear on the new TV show, Stallions. Well, I guess you'll have to do. What's your name?
My name is Larry. Larry Laffer.
Oh, hell. Good enough for who it's for.
This is the one that takes place at the health resort Larry wins a 2-week vacation to on the show Stallions. Look, Larry just wins or is involved in a lot of contests on a lot of TV shows, okay? Let me set up why this game inspired this little video essay in the first place. I had distinct memories of both the locker room full of big muscle men, and that there was a gay man you could meet who was constantly flirting with Larry and was, in his own way, romanceable. Let me introduce Gary.
Gary, the towel attendant, flits around behind the towel counter, straightening up things that are already straight and trying to unstraighten things that are straight.
Hi, big boy. New around here?
No, I mean, yes. And leaving soon, I hope.
Ooh, such a tease.
Now, if you went ahead and, God forbid, use the sexy zipper command on Gary, you got this little scene.
Oh, sweetie, I thought you'd never ask.
Oh, no. What have I done?
For 14-year-old Johnny, this was like a thunderbolt from the sky, capturing my imagination. That, and also the scolding the game gave you for giving the naked muscle men in the shower any attention.
Hey, stop looking at the naked men. You're supposed to be looking at naked women. This naked man is only placed here for the prurient pleasures of the female game players. Better not, Larry. This guy looks big, strong, and hetero.
Look, there was just absolutely zero gay video game content at the time, and having ones that even hinted at the player making man-on-man choices was something. As I always love to say, even bad representation is still better than no representation, most of the time. This was a game I never actually had a legal or pirated copy of myself. And I have to say it does feel just straight up weird but good that I, now, 30-something years later after their release, have legally purchased digital copies of all the Larry games through Steam. I'm sorry, Al.
Rosé is wearing a flowered tube top that accentuates her petite but perfectly proportioned pair of protuberances.
But these ancient memories just resulted from a straight high school friend of mine showing me the game, and from my own terrified closeted self at the time's sake, I do hope that I wasn't too obviously interested in the gay stuff. I'm mortified just thinking about it. I was a weird gay homunculus at the time, barely human. The 90s weren't great for me, in fact they were straight up shitty, and JRPGs and Sierra games really did help me get through it.
You may think I'm an airhead who's never had an original thought.
What? Why would I think that? Especially now.
But I do know something about life and love and happiness.
Well, really, Mare, that's not important right now.
Oh, but it's something I simply must say. In fact, I'll whisper it in your ear right now.
What? My God, Marilee, I'm dumbfounded. That's amazing. You are so wise. An ultimate truth. I'm...
So for this video, I played about a solid hour of the game without a guide, seeing how far I could get. Okay, technically I first played through about an hour of Lucius Larry 7, Love for Sale, as I was confused as to which one had Larry prancing off into the sunset with another man. But in writing this essay, I was looking up the plot beats of Lucius Larry 5 and 6, trying to figure out why Larry was single, and Patty was out of the picture in this one. And the game doesn't really say anything, but the Wikipedia plot synopsis mentions some other interesting queer content later in the game, so I marathoned my way through a few hours of it the other night. Oh boy, I wish I had not. Look, I've come at this with the perspective that while the game was made by well-meaning 90s liberals, it was also in the defiantly politically incorrect 80s and 90s, where political correctness was first codified as doing something because it would result in the best political outcome for your specific interest, and then misunderstood as doing something to posture yourself as virtuous and superior and easily offended. Look at the warning that Lucius Larry 3 starts with, that the game contains sexual situations and, quote, ethnic humor, unquote, and you better be okay with that, which you could generously interpret as an early content warning, but comes off maybe a bit more braggadocious about how we're offensive to everyone, man. I was pretty surprised for a 1993 game the amount of F-bombs Larry 6 throws around.
Wouldn't you think he'd be uncomfortable lying on that huge tool belt?
Ooh, hey, that tickles. Hey, what are you, some kind of fag? Get your hands off of me.
Could I buy you a drink, Burgundy?
Yes, you sure could. But none of this faggy, citified dog drippings they serve in here. Man, could I go for a couple of Lone Stars? Yeah.
But there's a fun scene where Larry ends up accidentally setting up two women together for a lesbian tryst, in what starts as a furtive attempt at a three-way and ends with Larry alone. I've been there, Larry. Sure, it was with two bears who went off to leave me alone in their hotel suite with a coked-up skinny guy in a glittery pink cowboy hat, who insisted on showing me Bruce Springsteen videos until I understood them, but I get it.
Here, let me pour a little water on the rocks. Oops. Sorry, I spilled the whole bucket. Now it really is steamy, isn't it? What the? Oh.
Towards the end of the game, there's a woman you meet who is a shopaholic looking for a new dress to wear, a chablis. And this basically is the only condition that you need to meet in order for her to sleep with you.
Oh, Larry. Oh, it's perfect. Why don't you meet me tonight down at the beach and we'll take a midnight swim together. Just the two of us, alone in the moonlight.
Cut to a moonlit date on the beach, full of the best kissing Larry has ever had. He shows her the condom he brought, and she grabs it and puts it on herself, turning to him with the giantest tent that you'll ever see in a Larry series.
No wonder Chablis knows what a man likes.
Larry is horrified, starts spitting out all of the saliva that I guess feels was contaminated by kissing a trans woman, and backs away from her in 90s straight man transphobic horror. Got to the next morning, where Larry is continuing to gargle mouthwash. To set the scene for this bit of anti-trans horror as a joke, you need to start with 1992's The Crying Game.
What were you doing in the bar if you didn't know? I'm bleeding. It's all right, Jimmy. I can take it. Just not on the face. See, I'm not a young thing any longer.
In it, the love interest of the protagonist, Fergus, is revealed to be trans, which results in a famous scene of him assaulting her and vomiting. Oh boy, late-night talk shows thought this tough scene from a poignant drama was just the bee's knees, the funniest thing to happen in years.
I'm sorry.
Cut to Naked Gun 33 1/3 and Ace Ventura both having similar scenes of revulsion, popularizing the idea of trans women wanting nothing more to trick men into relationships with them that dominated comedy for the next 10 years.
Oh my God! Einhorn is a man!
Although I really think of this kind of transphobic comedy as a mid-90s to early 2000s thing, there are some weird instances where it shows up in the 2010s.
Hey, Barney, there's a bunch of models in the lobby, and the gossip is one of them is really a dude. You want to play Who's Hot and Who's Scott?
It's always the one in the turtleneck, Ted.
Please feel free to check out Lily Simpson's video on the transphobia and How I Met Your Mother for more. I'll put links in the show notes. I think I try my best to give old comedy works a lot of leeway and understand their products of their time, but this one, I don't know, made me rethink this essay in the first place. Maybe it's the whole meta Facebook 180 on anti-queer speech thing that happened this past week. Maybe it's all the F-slurs. I'm not triggered, I'm not offended, or whatever you want to say, I'm just bummed out. It really does feel like one of the few moments in the series, other than a woman's mother just not being hot enough for Larry in Leisure Suit Larry 2, where the joke isn't at the expense of Larry, it's at the expense of someone else. I just feel sad now. Oh yeah, Leisure Suit Larry 7. Love for Sale. Does have that one gay guy. I guess I'll play the clip. At least he's not horny for Larry.
Completed by now, just stand. I'm sure Captain Thigh will be pleased as punch to see such a good turnout this week. And as you all know, each week she runs a little competition for her male, or male-like, passengers, which she calls the Thighs Man Trophy Contest. Isn't that cute?
If you're wondering why I didn't touch on any of the later non-Sierra Larry games of the 2000s, it's because they're terrible and I don't want to bother. Okay, deep breath. It's a new chapter, a new part of the video. What about the queer moments in some of the other titles? There's small moments of gay panic, like walking into an occupied shower in Police Quest 1, or trying to question a patron at a French Quarter bar in Gabriel Knight's Sins of the Father.
What's up? Buddy, I think the place you're looking for is down on Bourbon.
Sins of the Father also has a sort of comedic relief antagonist in the art dealer, but we don't talk about him.
Hey kids!
Bruno, how nice.
Gee, a customer.
Of yours? Hardly.
How's the flower business?
Well, better than the used book business, I see.
Rare books.
That explains why I so rarely see anyone in here. Are you going to sell me that wonderful painting of yours today?
There's an extended bit in Space Quest 4 at the Space Mall where you have to, borrow your ex's ATM card, which requires a basic visual scan to match her photo. This means heading over to the ladies' clothing retailer, which is decked out in some fantastic 1991 couture. Very Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Tess, Marcy, and Donna are wearing bellhop uniforms in fuchsia, purple, and teal hand airbrushed slub silk with matching caps. The epaulettes and cuff detailing are antique gold lace.
And an alien shopkeeper slowly realizes that you're not shopping for a supposed wife and helps Roger Wilco become his best femme self. Meanwhile, there's a strange but memorable character in the mystery game The Dagger of Amon-Ra, set in 1920s New York City. In the back room of a speakeasy, you run into a flapper sprawled out on a chaise longue. She seems very interested in getting to know the fledgling reporter Laura Bow intimately, offering all sorts of flirts. She also mentions wanting to meet with the Countess Lavinia Waldorf Carleton, which may give some insight into the personal life of this wealthy socialite.
What is that stuff? Ooh, just some old leftover fairy dust I've been carrying around. Ooh, it'll help you to fly. You can follow me to the land of Serenia, where Crispin and I live. It's much too far to walk, you know. Ooh, I think the fairy dust is still good.
And of course, Cedric the Owl was super gay. Oh, by the way, if you can think of any other Sierra characters that are gay or trans or some other way queer, please let me know. I want to do a follow-up to this video at some point, and I'd like to use your ideas. Hey, thanks for watching through this second great moment of queer gaming history. Please feel free to check out my Coopert Opens World series, where I review and rank every open world drivey shooty crime game. The next one is going to be on the 2022 Saints Row reboot. Also, feel free to check out my Switchport reviews, or check out the podcast I'm on, Square Roots, the classic RPG podcast. I play through your favorite RPGs a chunk at a time, as well as The Bard's Tale. It's not just me. There's also my co-hosts, Vanessa, Jim, and Matthew. Feel free to like and subscribe and share with your nerdy and/or queer friends. As always, I love you. Platonically. Let's not make it weird.
Oh.